In today's video, a federal judge makes a massive mistake when he orders President Trump to return an MS-13 gang member. Also, the Supreme Court just handed Trump a massive victory, and another female athlete refuses to compete against a man in her sport. So let's start here.
Now, an Obama-appointed federal judge has just ordered the Trump administration to make immediate arrangements to return one of the more than 200 alleged gang members who were deported to El Salvador last month. The judge says that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation was illegal because it was done without a judicial proceeding. A judge previously ruled that he could not be deported to El Salvador because of concerns that he would be a victim of gang crime. The administration recently said that his deportation was, quote, an administrative error, but insists that he is a member of MS-13. Unclear right now how he is going to be returned since he is now in El Salvador's custody.
So Stephen Miller had this to say in regards to this announcement. Marx's judge now thinks she's the president of El Salvador, and he makes a good point because the White House press secretary just said this as well. Quote, we suggest the judge contact President of El Salvador because we are unaware of the judge having jurisdiction or authority over the country of El Salvador. And that's just the obviously the reasoning that the Trump administration is going to run with here is like, okay, judge, you could demand us to bring this criminal back, but we don't control whether or not El Salvador will allow us to do that. So it's going to be interesting how this actually unfolds. And for your own situational awareness here, the Justice Department will appeal the order to the Richmond-based 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, according to a court filing after the hearing.
Obviously, this story is just breaking, but your reaction to this news and how this will be handled?
Well, the American people should know who this individual is. He's not some Maryland father, as the mainstream media will make you believe. He's actually a member of MS-13 and was involved in human trafficking. It's unbelievable, the framing of this. Whether this man is in El Salvador or in a U.S. detention center, he should be locked up. And people should also know who MS-13 is. It is a gang that rapes, maims, and kills Americans for sport. They should not be on U.S. soil, and any media outlet who tries to make him a darling or a victim should really be ashamed.
So we know where the Trump administration stands in regards to this individual. They claim he's full MS-13. The lawyer claims he is not. Democrats claim he is not, and that this was a mistake. Now, the White House did acknowledge that a mistake was made administratively, which led to his deportation. So I guess we'll have to see how this shakes out, given that they've appealed this to the appellate court there. Now, even though this was bad news for the Trump administration today, they did get some great news from the Supreme Court, which actually sided with Trump in regards to him freezing funds for the Department of Education. Let's hear more on that right now.
Paula, we're apparently just learning about this in the last few minutes from the court. What's going on?
So this is significant because, as you said, this is really the first time that President Trump has gotten a win from the high court since he came back to the White House and has undertaken this expansive effort to reshape the federal government. Now here, the Supreme Court is allowing him to block $65 million in Department of Education grants meant for states to help with teacher shortages. Now, these grants were allegedly targeted because they contain some DEI initiatives.
Now, the Attorney General Pam Bondi did release a statement. Quote, today marks a significant victory for President Trump in the rule of law. The Supreme Court ruling vindicates what the Department of Justice has been arguing for months. Local district judges do not have the jurisdiction to seize control of taxpayer dollars, force the government to pay out billions, or unilaterally halt President Trump's policy agenda. Department of Justice attorneys will continue fighting to protect the executive branch from gross judicial overreach. And the reason why this case matters because it clearly shows you the mindset of the Supreme Court right now, and it signals how they might rule on these future cases that have been appealed to the Supreme Court. And it really centers around this main issue. Does a local district court judge have the authority to override the executive branch nationally? Now, this takes us to our second story. It's about a female fencer disqualified after declining to fight a trans opponent. You're going to be shocked by some of the responses that we get into here. But let's first hear her side of the story really quickly.
So the official came over to me and asked if I was still refusing to fence, and I said yes. Oh, and you're talking about in the initially?
Yes.
Or when I got the black card?
No, initially.
Initially, I told them that I was refusing defense because this person is a man and I am a woman, and this is a women's tournament, and I refuse defense on principle.
And then later, right after this, we see your opponent comes over. What did you say to your opponent at that point?
My opponent was a little bit confused, thinking that I was maybe hurt, and I said, no, I am refusing defense you because I'm a woman and you are a man. I have much love and respect for you, but I will not compete against you.
Wow.
And he responded, okay, well, there's a, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, what was his response?
His response was, okay, but there's a member of the board of directors here, and he supports me, and there's a policy that says that I'm a woman and I'm allowed to compete in the women's tournament, and if you do this, you're going to get black carded. And I said, I know.
All right, now get this, okay? This story gets interesting. So Damien is the actual board's elected at-large director. Now, he's a strong supporter of transgender competing in women's sports, or men competing in women's sports, when he wrote a long-winded blog post about it. Let's take a look. It's called "The Fencing Coach Hit Other Guy Before Other Guy Hits You." And, I'm not going to read, obviously, everything on it, but here is really the bottom line up front. Quote, "Transgender women are women, and gender is not sex. Transgender fencers deserve the right to compete with the gender they identify with, and those of adult age should comply with the competition guidelines and regulations outlined by USA Fencing. Third, a separate division denies them their truth to compete as their authentic selves. Also, there's a possibility that transgender women have a physical advantage over their cisgender opponents after transitioning. There's also a possibility they do not. In fencing, there is no data to support either viewpoint. And finally, giving athletes a sense of belonging and a will to live is more powerful than medals and competitive glory. I thought the whole purpose of being an athlete is to compete. Now, if you're a visual guy like me, I mean, you could just see in this photo who is the actual man and who is not. I thought this was about safety. But according to USA Fencing, they believe this is safe and that they're following their own guidelines by allowing men to compete in women's sports.
It's important to note that other athlete, or rather the guidelines for USA Fencing is for trans athletes. They can be involved in these types of competitions as long as they go by certain guidelines, guys.
And what is USA Fencing saying about this particular incident?
Yeah, like you said, Brianna, they are doubling down. They are sticking by their stance of allowing transgender athletes to compete. And listen, after the executive order by President Trump, I've done a number of these stories, and a lot of these governing bodies of sports have quickly changed their minds. We saw it with the NCAA, we saw it with USA Track and Field, but it does look like fencing is sticking by what their original guidelines were. And that is that they said, while we understand there are a range of perspectives, USA Fencing will continue to engage in respectful research-based dialogue and review as policy evolves in the Olympic and Paralympic movement, as well as domestic law. Hate speech or targeted hate of any kind is not acceptable online or in person. So we'll see how that continues on, but it does look like they are allowing this transgender women to continue to competing in these types of competitions.
Yeah, so that means that they're willing to obviously F around and find out. I mean, that's really what that statement means. They're more focused on the criticism than the actual fairness and competitiveness within their own sport. And I just think that is out of touch. Now, what's interesting is the timing, because the Department of Education and also the Department of Justice have just announced that they are creating a team to investigate transgender athletes in women's sports. Okay, this is happening because this investigations team will address complaints about transgender athletes in women's sports and women-only spaces. The team aims to protect women's rights and use the full power of the law to remedy these violations. And also, Linda McMahon posted this video. Watch.
Today, the Department of Education, alongside the Department of Justice, is proud to announce the creation of the Title IX Special Investigations Team, consisting of attorneys and investigators from both of our agencies to adjudicate our ever-increasing volume of Title IX investigations. We have received a staggering number of complaints about men competing in women's sports and invading women-only intimate spaces. That's why we're partnering with Attorney General Bondi's team to move even faster in order to protect women and girls. The establishment of this team will benefit women and girls across this nation who have been subjected to discrimination and indignity in their educational activities. To all entities receiving federal funding who continue to allow these illegal practices, we will not permit you to trample on women's rights any longer.
Out of every single issue that could be debated in regards to politics or cultural issues, this happens to be the one where you're going to find most Americans agree on the same principle, which is men should not be playing in women's sports. I just find it so fascinating that this happens to be the one thing that we can all agree on. And what's even more interesting to me about this entire story is Stephanie Turner is a lifelong Democrat. She is now saying she will be a Republican moving forward.
You know, I feel like this issue gets very polarized by political parties because Republicans stand against this and Democrats stand with this. Democrats stand alone. A New York Times Ipsos poll found that 79%, nearly 80% of Americans, which literally cannot agree on the same ice cream flavor, can agree that this is not right, this is not normal, they are not in support of this. The average American thinks this is so dead wrong. The fact that we have so many Democrats in power that refuse to speak up in favor of their base. This woman, Stephanie Turner, said she was a lifelong Democrat who has decided to become a new Republican conservative because of this issue. Yeah. Democrats are going to continue to lose elections because they fail to understand their party and their viewpoint is so radical, it's out of touch with their own base.
If Democrats want to defend this, go right on ahead, right? I think Republicans and conservatives will support that type of attitude. Now, let's go to our third story here, and it's not going to surprise you. This is in regards to Democrats cashing in on exposing how bad it was for Biden and his mental acuity that they obviously covered up. These are the same individuals that had nothing to say years ago, but now they want to make money off of it. I find that to be interesting. Now, where we're going to start first is showing you this clip from Mark Halperin. He's on Fox News with Bret Baier, and I think he sums up everything nicely. Take a look.
So you didn't need investigative reporting or these books to know that Joe Biden had substantial mental decline. You just needed a C-SPAN subscription. So that's not the revelation. To me, the thing that's in these books, which is true, is that Joe Biden, despite his mental decline, agreed with Barack Obama that she couldn't win. And part of why he hung on and part of why Barack Obama was not eager for her to be the nominee was they wanted to beat Donald Trump. And so they faced this problem. They didn't think Joe Biden could do it. Biden did, but Obama didn't, and others, Pelosi didn't, Schumer didn't. But they didn't think she could either. And the problem was that these books, as far as I can tell, don't get into, no one else wanted to run. It was this horrible dilemma. Every day he waited to get out, she got a stronger grip on the nomination because no one was going to challenge her at the last minute. And they had no choice.
Yeah, see, he makes a good point because there's more than one book that's been coming out. And now I guess Democrats have left the denial phase and now they're in the acceptance phase. So they're a little bit more open to, I guess, either supporting the idea that clearly there was something wrong with Joe Biden or that at a minimum he should have never attempted to run for president again. Now, the ladies on The View, they're not taking this well. We all know that. And so I don't think you'll be surprised by what Joy Behar had to say in regards to this. Take a look.
The 2024 presidential campaign was even more of a mess for Democrats than we even saw. According to several new books about the last few months of the election, they're writing books about it now. In one book, Biden advisor Ron Klain claimed there was a lot of concern that Biden couldn't keep up with the debate prep and he would fall asleep by the pool.
Me too.
Me too. Another book claims President Obama didn't want VP Harris to take Biden's place. His choice was Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Now, these are books that people are writing, so we have to take a lot of this, I think, with a bit of a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. I mean, if any of this is true, what can Democrats do about it now? I mean, it seems to me this ship has sailed. What's the point?
Well, I'll tell you what the point is, Joy, and it's what is in the DNA of Democrats right now as a party. They're all about getting rich. Imagine how many people became multimillionaires off the campaign of Kamala Harris. You think they're finished? The next option is to sell books about what happened. So, yeah, they're going to make money. There's a lot of people who want to make a name for themselves. There are still a lot of people who want to tell the truth, but refuse to when it actually mattered. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by this. And no, the ship has not sailed. Now, I want you to watch this next clip. It's of Ashley Allison on CNN. and Anna Navarro. Now pay attention to Anna's facial expressions as Ashley acts like she's dumbfounded about these stories in regards to Joe Biden and that voters deserve better.
I hadn't been around the president before that debate, and I worked for Joe Biden. And if the people around him knew that he was not capable, it is unacceptable to me that they allowed him to go onto that stage. I deserve better as a voter, not even as a Democrat, as a voter and as an American. I do.
And I know that Joe Biden is a friend, but in this excerpt, the part about the pool, he went off, this is in the middle of debate prep, went off to the pool and he took a nap. And that was before the biggest debate of this campaign. That's not even the governance of the country. So Joe Biden, maybe he has the best intentions. I'm sure that you believe that. But the right decision, it seems pretty unequivocally, is that he should not have run for re-election.
Look, I was also just texting with Ron Klein, and who vehemently says he was taken out of context.
Yeah, so that really tells you the type of person Anna Navarro truly is, okay? Listen, if you're a progressive out there, or a Democrat, and you happen to be watching this video, I don't mind that you disagree with 99% of what I'm saying. But I would respect you if you're able to call out your own party and tell the truth. Everybody and their mom knows that Joe Biden was not fit to be president. And for people to be cashing in on it now and then to act surprised that it took place and to make the excuse like, oh, I never saw that. Yeah, that's why you guys have zero credibility.
You knew exactly what was happening. You're just in denial. So now they're in the state of acceptance and they're trying to rebuild their party. It's not going well. The approval rating of the Democratic Party is at 23%. And who do we see going out and trying to talk about it? The failed Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris, doing what she's always done, going out and laughing, saying, I told you so, as if the American people really buy that things would be better under a President Harris. Are you kidding me? Especially with the jobs report today that came out that was good for the economy.
All right, so let me get your guys' answer to this question in the comment section below. What is your reaction to this federal judge once again looking to, I guess, overpower the executive branch by ordering President Trump to return this MS-13 gang member and human trafficker back to the United States? Do you think it will actually happen because they need to do it by Monday? Or do you believe President Trump will tell this judge to kick rocks? Let me know what your thoughts are about all that in the comment section below. Now, we ended this video off by continuing to show you how the Democratic Party is in shambles. Well, earlier this morning, we did a video proving that because the new jobs report came out today and it allowed Trump to score a huge win. And on top of that, small business owners are supporting President Trump's tariff strategy. If you missed out on stories from earlier today, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.